You are listening to the Horse Radio Network, part of the Equine Network family.
This is episode 728 of the Dressage Radio Show, official podcast of the United States Dressage Federation on the Horse Radio Network, brought to you by Kentucky Performance Products.
This is Glenn the Geek, founder of the Horse Radio Network.
And this is Reese Stanfield from Georgetown, Kentucky.
And you're listening to the Dressage Radio Show. Well, this is a show that, I started this network 2008. And this is a show that I didn't imagine I'd ever be doing.
Yeah.
Try and hold it together.
We are going to try really hard to hold this together. We really are.
So for those that don't know, Phil passed away a couple days ago. And you recorded with him on Thursday the 31st, the last episode he did, right?
That's correct. Yep.
And how was he that night?
He was great. We actually recorded, that was technically our day off. And we would do this frequently because his schedule and my schedule. I was on a committee for the Brook USA and on the following week, which we typically would have recorded. And we went ahead and recorded early because I had that event. And yeah, he was great. I mean, we had a good recording and everything was fine. So he was in good spirits and he was our normal Philip. So.
And then a few days later on the 4th of September, literally a few days later, you heard from his wife, Meredith. That's right.
And, we had talked a little bit on the weekend. I can't even remember about what. I would have to look back. But we had talked a little bit via WhatsApp. I mean, we talked pretty much every day. And that was about horse shows or about what was going on with our horses. And so he was good. Talked to him on the weekend. And then Monday, he had a stroke.
And it wasn't just a small stroke. It was a massive stroke. And he basically was unresponsive after that. He never did really come to. No. So he didn't suffer. I know a lot of people were asking if he suffered because then he passed on the 15th, which is just 2 days ago, whereas we're recording this. So it was a rough couple of weeks for his family and his friends and for us.
Yeah, we knew. Meredith called. We had a really unique friendship because my husband and Philip and Meredith, his wife, we were all really good friends. And we would travel outside the show and hang out together a lot. So, and I'm very, very thankful for his wife. His wife actually was there when he had the stroke. So she was able to get him to help immediately, which was good. And she really did keep us in the loop. We kept it actually very quiet, just out of privacy for him and Meredith and his family. But he did pass away very peacefully with his family and friends surrounding him.
So we wanted to thank all of you for your kind words over the last day since the announcement was made. There are hundreds and hundreds.
Oh my goodness. Yes. And we've been reading them. I mean, we've really have read them all. We've tried to reply to as many as we can. I have to be honest. I think Glenn and I today, it's Sunday when we're recording and we're both really exhausted. And I know Jennifer is also exhausted, but my goodness, I can't thank everyone enough. It's just the love and the feelings and, oh gosh, we really can't thank you enough. That's been amazing. Actually overwhelming. Wouldn't you say, Glenn?
Yeah, overwhelming.
It's been overwhelming.
Horse Radio Network and the Dressage Show, all the shows, really have developed. They talk a lot in podcasting about building a community. We built a family.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we did.
I mean, judging by the number of messages you've gotten, the number of messages I've gotten, all from listeners who we become friends with. In my world, most of my friends, 90% of them are from the shows and they're listeners or you guys. Or, I mean, you and I were friends first, but we have a lot of friends as a result of doing this for so many years. And, you guys did this for so many years. I took one for the team today, Reese, and I went through and read every post, and I compiled some words that kept coming up over and over and over again about Phil. And yes, this, by the way, one of the things, let's address this. There was a lot of people that said he seemed so healthy. He was. This was not something anybody knew anything about.
Nope, not his wife. Nobody. Not him. I mean, he really, truly was a healthy guy.
I talked to him, the day before you guys recorded on the 31st for an hour. And we just talked for an hour about his life and all of that stuff. And there was he seemed fine.
He really was fine. And that was a blessing. He did not suffer. So I think it was hard for all of us because, there was no time. Thankfully, we had just some meetings about the show, so we actually knew kind of the direction we were going, and that was really cool. And he had got to know. I mean, you'd given us the latest numbers and that kind of thing, so that was awesome. And he was really healthy. And the last thing we talked about was his 3-year-old who he was talking about on the show, gosh, what they were up to with her. And
that would be his 3-year-old horse.
Horse, yes. Philip and Meredith
didn't have kids.
Yeah, they didn't have kids. And they have a wonderful dog and cats, definitely fur parents. And so, he was really, really, truly healthy. And it was a blessing. So we do kind of keep hearing that. And I know people want to know that. And I think that's important to know.
So the words that kept coming up over and over and over again: kind, gentle. Generous was one I saw 100 times. And the generous came from people he knew locally in the dressage community.
Yeah.
It's funny. Not funny. It's all of this is sad. But I heard from one of our listeners that's been a listener since day one on our shows and listened to every one of your episodes. And she's up that way. And she said, she started hearing it through the dressage community up there before we announced it. And she said, I hope Meredith's ready because there's going to be a lot of people at the service. Yeah. Yeah. He affected so many people in Canada, worldwide with the show, but in Canada, just because he was the guy that was always out there helping people. Yeah.
And he was. I mean, I think that was just a huge thing to know about him. And also his wife, Meredith, she's a veterinarian. I mean, they're just really kind, wonderful people. And he would help anybody. He would answer calls, answer questions.
He certainly put up with enough of your calls over the years.
Yeah, he couldn't get away from me. Let's be real. But yeah, truly, he was one of my trusted advisors off the show. I mean, I never bought a horse without Philip with me, or he came to Europe a few times, helped me buy horses. I did actually purchase a horse last week, and the horse was doing a pre-purchase, and there were gunshots next to where they were doing, like he was next to a shooting range. And I sent Meredith, and this is when he was, in a coma, and I sent her, I was like, please show him this video because he's got to know that I finally bought this horse that was Reese proof. Like it's next to a shooting range. Like this is perfect. Phil would love it. And it makes this horse even more special because Philip did know we were buying him and he had okayed him. He passed the Philip test, which was really wonderful. And so he's one of my trusted advisors for sure.
One of the next words is positive, and this is one, we're going to be brutally honest here. Reese and I can get a little grumpy sometimes, and Reese and I were friends long before she was doing the show, but we can get a little grumpy sometimes. But Phil always would smack us around and bring us back. It was
well, hey, but we also have to talk about Grumpy Phil.
Yeah, in the winter all the time.
So Phil would get grumpy in the winter, and I was always in Florida. So of course it's beautiful and there's beautiful things going on. And then I would come on, he's like, I don't want to hear about how nice it is down there. And so I would always, banter back and forth and talk about Grumpy Phil. And so people did actually, that Grumpy Phil came up quite a bit.
Grumpy winter
He wasn't
Phil.
really grumpy. He would just get grumpy in the winter. So he was.
He always did give us a positive when we're talking business and things. Yeah. There were some years that things were pretty lean for Horse Radio Network. Big surprise. We don't make a lot of money doing this.
No.
Big surprise. And we, during all of those conversations that we had about, is even the Horse Radio Network going to continue, back into this is 2014, 15, somewhere in that range. And, Phil was always like, let's just keep going. Let's just keep going.
Yeah.
in other words, wise, giving. This was one I saw the most. Reese and Philip were a great team.
Yeah, we were a great team. This one was, so cool to hear. And
a lot of listeners posted that.
Yeah. And we were a really great team. And we'll talk a little bit later about some of the things we did. We did things that when we brought him on, so I actually had, I was here about a month before Phil came on. And, it became pretty apparent, when we were looking for co-hosts that it was nice to have a male voice. And I mean that, and just because it was easier to distinguish between the two people.
Oh, I like male-female co-hosts. I think that's my favorite. Yeah. It
worked really well. But at first, Phil, you almost didn't let him come on.
I admit.
And we have to talk about this. This is funny. He almost did not make it. And I finally was like, Phil, you got to loosen up, man. Because I knew him quite a few years before, and we hung out.
How did you ever meet him?
Well, we met at the Young Dressage Horse Trainers Conference in 2005. And so we were really good friends before. So that conference went on for 10 years. And there were 5 of us that went to all 10 conferences. And he just applied and I applied. And I don't know, sometimes I think it was right before we got married, Travis and I, in 2006. But we were sitting together or something. And then we were like, we really like hanging out, and we have a very similar view on training horses. So it's kind of a generic thing where we would just always kind of hang out and sit together and chat about horses. And, we have a lot of our friends that come on the show, they come on quite a bit. Katie Pogue, Megan McIsaac, those guys came to the conference, and we would just get to sit and train horses for 3 or 4 days and have a lot of time to socialize. No clients, which was what was really cool about that event. A lot of cool relationships came out of that event, and that's how we met. So I knew Phil and kind of called him and said, hey, I got asked to do this thing, and I said I would only do it for a few months. That's why we always joke that I would only do this for 3 months, because I told Glenn.
Oh, I had to talk Reese into this. I was working on her for a long time.
He worked me into that. I was like, Glenn, I don't know. This is I don't know. And this is way early in podcasting.
It was.
You have to remember.
The sound was terrible, by the way. I went back and listened to your first episode. It was awful.
Yeah, it was awful. And we're talking almost 11 and a half years ago now.
Right,
we're getting close to the halfway mark, And so you asked me to do it. And then Phil came on and you called me and you're like, Reese, I don't know if this guy's going to work. And I was like, no, he's really great. He's not coming across.
He was very, like most people that I've had host their first shows over the years, they're very stiff. Mm-hmm. And Dr. Wendy, who and is one of the most fun-loving, partying people you ever meet. Her first episode was terrible of the driving show. And I told her, I said, Wendy, you've got to just be yourself.
Yeah.
And I think that's what you told Phil, right?
I did. It was like, you have to be yourself and just have a shot before you come on. So I think he had 2. And that's actually when we would get into it for that first 6 months. I mean, he and I, if you really listen, were pretty hammered, or would get hammered as the show went on. And
because you were a communications major, but this was not something that you ever did before.
I was diplomacy.
Oh, diplomacy. That's right.
Diplomacy.
Yeah, that's
I have a
completely different.
Diplomacy. It's we did media training and that kind of stuff in grad school, but no, I don't have. I mean, we had a day's course of media. Not how do you handle some kind of tragedy in Iraq or something. That's the kind of media training we had, but. Yeah, nothing formal. And Phil either. And actually, Phil, he unbelievably did not go to college. He went to Europe and rode. But he's literally one of the smartest guys I've met. And his ability to communicate was, as we all know, was amazing. And he got to the point where, after so long, you get in a pretty good rhythm. And also the way our year works, when I'm in Florida, I'm super busy. So he would take over and we didn't have to talk about it. When I was in Europe in August, he just booked the guests and I would see the emails coming through and, we just did that for each other. And I think that's what happens when you have a long time partnership with someone is you don't even have to kind of say it. He knew what I was doing in Europe. He was getting videos every night. So he knew, and he would just book guests and take care of things. And likewise for me, because in Canada, the season's so short. so we were able to do that. And he did, he loosened up, and he actually became the bad cop's the wrong word, but he would ask the hard questions that I would like never ask.
Oh yeah, he would, for sure.
He would ask, and it didn't matter who it was, who was famous, who whatever. He wouldn't do that. I mean, he had the ability to do that, which was great. So once we finally got him to loosen up, then we weren't completely drunk all the time. First, you'll have to go back, guys, and listen. It was actually really funny. So he was able to do that, and he really could ask the hard questions and in a kind, soft way, which was great. And Glenn took one for the team. I couldn't really go back and list all the Olympians we were able to listen and interview, and teams, but we did so many. We did some really, really famous people, and we would both be a little bit nervous doing that. And I'll never forget our first press conference, because when we would go to the WEG or to the World Cups, we could go to the press conferences. And I mean, I looked at him and he looked at me, and I was like, I can't believe we're sitting in here. They let us in here,
I still say that.
It was crazy. So, that was crazy. So
I wanted to, before we go on, I wanted to say the one other thing that I saw, the one other statement I saw that kept coming up over and over and over again. And if this is how, when we all leave this earth, if we're remembered with this one statement, we've done all right in life. And it was, he was one of the good guys.
Yeah, I love that one.
If we all leave that way, with people saying that about us.
Yeah. I mean, wow, that would be amazing. And I think Phil's done that. And, I think everybody feels his loss and his tragedy. And it's just, he's way too young. And
was he 41, right?
I think so. Yeah. 41, 42. I can't remember. He's a couple of years younger than me. But we celebrated his 40th birthday.
He started this show when he was in his late 20s, early 30s.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So did I, Glenn.
Yeah, yes, you did.
I was like, easy, Glenn. And it's true. He really, truly, and he was just like he came off on the show. That's how he was in person.
For sure. I got the privilege of cruising with him on one of the Horse Lovers cruises. He was on the first one, actually. So a lot of people, we got to know he and Meredith. When you cruise for 6-7 days with someone, you get to know him really well.
You get to know him, yeah.
So, but yeah, so from the whole Horse Radio Network community, all our hosts and listeners and sponsors and everything, our condolences go out to Meredith, his family, and all of you. This is a loss for all of us, together. So, it is. So we keep getting the question, what can I do for Meredith? Well, fortunately, thank God, he lives in Canada and they have national health care. So that's something anyway. Here it would be disaster, especially with what all the medical care he got. So is there something that's going to be put together? What's the story?
There is. So just know that, first of all, Meredith was very supportive of us doing this show. Glenn and I we've been in pretty constant communication with her, and she knows, and she gave us our blessing to have this show. And she said, right now, I'm just not, and I can only imagine, she said, you guys, I know you'll do a wonderful job. So she does know we're doing the show. And right now, there will be a celebration of life. She and his family, thankfully his mom was at the hospital, and part of it, there was very great family support. So there'll be a celebration of life. We're just waiting to hear when that will be. And Meredith and I are going to sit down and decide how we want to honor him. So we're hoping there'll be a scholarship. That's the current plan. But we will get back. That. He would have loved it. And so that's the plan. But we need to just organize it, obviously with us being in the States and Canada, and it gets a little bit more complicated, but we will figure something out. But as of right now, she just well wishes, and she is okay. thankfully she is a veterinarian and has a good career, a very, very good career, and she's okay. So just please know that she has our blessing, and she's thinking about everybody, and so is family, and again, they were great support of our show. So there will be something in the future. Just kind of keep an eye out, and we of course will announce it on all our channels so that people can help us hopefully with that scholarship.
And the other question that everybody's thinking but not asking is what about the Dressage Radio Show?
Yeah. So,
good question. We're thinking
we're thinking it too. Great question, actually. And again, because we had a meeting recently, and so we had an idea, and Phil and I both were not done with our podcast journey. So I kind of feel like I'm not done with my podcast journey. It just, this show and this radio network have been such a huge part of my life. I mean, for the last 11, I'm going to go in a half years because I was a few more shows ahead of Phil. But
11 years and 3 months.
11 years and 3 months. And, it just to stop would be really hard for me. I would lose not just Phil, but my other family. So, I'm not ready to stop. I do.
Can I add that nor would Phil want you to?
No.
I can hear him in my head saying, "What the hell's wrong with you, Reese?"
All week, I've been hearing Phil like, "Reese, you get out there and teach those lessons." Like, what are you doing? All week. Finally, today, I'm like, Phil, it's Sunday. I need a day. I have tried to be brave and get up every day and teach lessons and keep moving forward and training people, which is what he wanted. So, I'm not quite done yet. I can't lose Phil and my other family. We don't know yet what the show is going to look like or how the co-host, we don't know that yet. We will I need a month or so to come on. So the Dressage Today team is going to take over for the month of October, and then I'll be back, which is the plan. And Glenn and I'll talk about it. There'll probably be a lot of alcohol involved, but we'll figure it out, and we will do that. And I truly mean that. Like, this network is truly family. We're all friends. We all see each other, and make it a point. And and also Paul, who we haven't talked about, but Paul, our producer, he was with Phil and I. Yeah, he, I've kept him in the loop. I think we're all just so overwhelmed right now.
Matter of fact, Paul probably recorded more episodes for you than anybody.
He did. Yeah, he did. And I mean, you also have to remember, we were the Thursday night during the pandemic. I mean, we all three of us look forward to being with each other. And, Paul's in England, Phil was in Canada.
Paul was doing this at like midnight or 1 o'clock in the morning.
He does it, like 1 o'clock in the morning. And, it was a huge community. And we tried even, my fondest memories, and that's, again, in quotation marks, were the time during the pandemic, where sometimes we just all stay on a little bit longer and just see how we all were doing and what we were doing and, that kind of stuff, because that was what we could do on a Thursday night, really. And then sometimes Meredith would come in and have a drink and Phil and I were here, and my husband would come in, and we would just all sit down and have a drink after the show, because what else were we doing? And those were wonderful times.
Paul did say, "I'd love to continue working with Reese when she's ready." So he'll hang around for you, Reese, and you're gonna. And believe me, Reese needs him because her technical abilities are zero.
I refuse to do technology, and Philip would do all of it. And so I had also connected with Paul and just said, when I come back, I need you, because I do know how to do it, but I just really do not want to do it, and have always said I wouldn't do it. And Phil did all of it. So I was like, I need you to do the tech part. I can't think about that. So, and again, it's the community and family that we are here, and it really is. So I'll be back, guys. Just give me a couple weeks just to get my sea legs and make some plans, and Glenn and I will work together, and we'll make it happen. So, Well, I got a message from somebody that's been a supporter and really made this show possible from the beginning, and that was Karen at Kentucky Performance Products. She's been a sponsor of the show since you guys started, pretty much. And you became friends with her, and I mean, she's had her horses at your house, and I mean, it's just, we're all friends. Again, this is a, family. Yeah. So she sent this message over, and if I can get through this,
It'll be a miracle.
You can do it.
All right. The staff at Kentucky Performance Products were deeply saddened to hear about the loss of their dear friend, Philip Parks. Losing someone as knowledgeable and passionate as Phil is a great loss to the equestrian community and to all of those whose lives were touched by his expertise and compassion. It was a pleasure working with Phil, and he will be missed. Phil will be remembered for his passion, depth of knowledge, and positive influence he's had on those he's worked with. His legacy will live on through countless lives he touched and the love and respect he had for horses. We can only imagine the profound sense of loss Phil's wife Meredith and his family must be experiencing. Our thoughts and prayers are with them and all his fans at the Horse Radio Network during this challenging time. Thank you, Karen.
Thank you, Karen.
Well written. You know, the one thing that is nice, and this leads into how we want to end the show, was maybe with some laughs, because Phil, you know Phil the dressage guy. You didn't know Phil the quirky guy. So we're going to get into a little bit about that. But I wanted to mention that the one nice thing about doing I'll go into some of the stats here, doing what he did for 11 years is he left his knowledge with the world.
He did.
You know, so many of us pass away and there's nothing written down. There's nothing, there's nothing recorded. He has 11 years of shows recorded giving his expertise on something that he was so passionate about. So the nice part is we can all benefit forever from Phil.
We can. We can. Yeah.
So a little bit about we found out how you met him, and your first appearance, believe it or not, on the Dressage Radio Show was not as a host, was as a guest, August 1st of 2009.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, you were a guest on the show when it first started. I didn't know that either till I did some research. May 31st of 2012 was your first episode. Mm-hmm. So that's when you started. Phil hosted for the first time in June, so you're right, it was about a month later. Mm-hmm. And then I said, he can't continue this, he's terrible. And then you said, give him a chance.
Give him a chance. He's actually really cool.
And 11 years later.
Like, what is wrong with you? I was like, can you please just loosen up, man? Gosh.
He was pretty stiff.
He was so stiff. It's really quite funny. I haven't listened to it. Funny enough, we actually don't listen to the shows once we do.
No, I don't either.
They go and they go with our producer. A lot of times either with Glenn. Glenn was with us for a long time. And then got rid of us. I think we bored him to death.
Just dressage over and over every week.
Now Paul, who doesn't know much about horses, but he knows a lot about dressage. And we would always laugh about that. So once they go, we don't hear them anymore.
Phil has hosted 568 episodes over 11 years.
Wow.
Now, the average podcaster does 7 episodes and quits. Only, I would say, you and Phil at 11 years, you're in the top 0.1% of all podcasters, because nobody makes it that long. Nobody. Yeah. I mean, there's very few. Probably you could count 100 or 200 podcasts out of the 4 million who have been on that long. Dressage Show is consistently the third most listened to show in the network, which there's 30 shows. So think about that. A show about dressage. Says a lot about the hosts.
Yeah, exactly.
And we always say, when I do keynote speeches and things, the first thing I put up there on the screen is they come for the content, they stay for the hosts. So I don't know if you noticed how many people said, especially in the auditor room, said, I don't ride dressage, but I listened for Reese and Philip. That says a lot.
It does. And I think, too, our unique partnership was they were both trainers. I mean, literally, our day job is horse training. And so we can answer a lot of questions for people that are training based. And what was also cool is we always had people asking us questions, which so we would really try to do. We do a weekly trainer tip on the show, and we really tried to do those weekly trainer tips ourselves. Sometimes we would grab from people, but if you notice, the ones that are asked questions we tried to do, and that was pretty cool, and so you really got to learn, or can learn, a lot about our training style. And Phil and I were really similar, but I will tell a funny story, and everybody will remember Legio Gate. And this one's funny. I even told Meredith, you tell him I'm right. I'm taking this one all the way. But Phil and I, that was the one disagreement. We literally had to stop and have a full-on discussion.
I think I was around during that. I remember that.
Yeah, we were like, cut, which means like, hey, we got to
You two were actually getting heated.
Yeah, we got pretty, I mean, I can feel my blood boil on this one. And I know he's up there like, you're wrong. We had to agree to disagree. And that was literally over the 11 years. That was it. That was the only thing. I mean, we would tweak things a little bit here or there, but we totally disagreed on this. And I feel like I'm still right. I think
he's up there talking to dressage masters now, finding out. He's
let's send it to, we're sending her a message. There's probably going to be this random book that shows up on my doorstep, but yeah, he felt like because I feel like I'm right. I feel like you sit in the direction of travel. And so if you're going like yielding from right to left, you sit on the left seat bone. And Phil would say you'd sit on the right seat bone and drive your right seat bone to the left. And so, yeah. So, but it's funny because he and I both researched it and came back with like actual research the next week. I was like, oh, I'm going to show him. And he's like, I'm going to show her. And we both didn't know. And I was like, hey, in this book, blah, blah, blah. And he had it too. So actually, technically, we're both right because there's two different ways, schools of thought. So we did have to agree to disagree on that one. But that was our one funny.
Well, every married couple has their disagreements. So.
Yeah, I'm still right.
In the last 90 days, 8,400 different people have listened to the show. In 36 countries. And you've never seen this. The U.S. is first. Australia was your number 2.
Yeah.
And then Canada, and then the UK, and then New Zealand.
Wow.
So Australia was number 2, and Australia's number 2 for a lot of our shows, actually. I thought it would have been Canada in your case, because he's from Canada.
Yeah, from Canada. Gosh, yep. That's crazy. And I've literally got messages from all over the world, Scotland and England, and because Phil's parents were English, or are English. So yeah, it was truly amazing. Yeah, our listenership, truly. Yeah.
Well, let's get into something that I still am blown away about, because this just blows my mind.
Yeah.
So when I first met Phil, was so quiet and unassuming and just Phil, right? And then I found out that you guys went to Vegas together.
Yes,
you and your husband,
were covering the World Cup.
He and Meredith. Yep. And you went to a freaking rave, and I'm like, who dragged who to a rave? You got to explain this.
Yeah, so Phil and Meredith love raves, and they
actually just blows my mind.
I know.
Because Meredith's so quiet and unassuming too.
I know and they loved it, and so they actually went to Belgium in August. So Phil got back, and then I got back from Europe. Like we basically sort of got back I got back and he got back, and then we did a couple shows, I think, in one day, and then I left to go horse shopping. I was just horse shopping. They went over for a music festival, and they would go all over for music festivals. But we went to see David Guetta, and I've never been to a rave. Actually, it wasn't really my scene, but we saw David Guetta in Vegas, and it was so fun. We stayed up all night, literally all night.
Isn't that a requirement at a rave?
Right. That's kind of the requirement. We got back, and it was super fun. But, we just did events all over that, again, I would never have dreamed of when you asked me to do this in 2012. I would never have thought. So Phil and I, he came to the WEG in 2010 just to visit us. And then we covered the WEG and Tryon. We covered the Pan American Games in Canada. We went to the World Cup in Omaha and Las Vegas. Actually, we had a really good time in Omaha. We had a really good time everywhere we went. We did the Omaha. There's an art museum there, and we went to the zoo. And we stayed at, I think it's the DoubleTree with the cookies. And I'll never forget, Phil loved the cookies. I mean, by the end of the week, the girl knew us. And she was like, hey, Phil, here's your cookie. And he's like, I may come back later. And she's like, okay. And there was this cookie bus that would drive around. And Phil was like chasing the cookie bus at one point to get us on. Yeah. I mean,
he did like sweets, didn't he?
He loved sweets. And you asked me like, what his favorite alcohol was? And I was like,
all of them.
All of them. I was like, gosh, I've drunk beer. He loved bourbon. So he and Travis, he would come and they would drink the same, they would go bourbon tasting. I'll never forget. He came down to help me at the U.S. finals. And I can't remember what year. See, I'm really bad with dates. Travis could probably remember, but I tried to get some of them down because I was like, oh, I'm going to forget. But they went bourbon tasting. And I was like, I'm telling you too, if he doesn't get back here to coach me on time, not drunk. And they did. They got back, and Philip was dressed and he wore a tie. I mean, he looked really, really lovely to coach me at the national finals. And so he would come and coach and hang out. And yeah, I mean, he really, truly was so much fun. I am drinking a coffee, a tea actually, out of a mug that we got together, and it said ride or die, and it's a unicorn. And he and I sometimes would be like, get your ride or die mug. And we picked it up at the WEG, and Meredith was like, what are you two doing? We're like, we're riding or dying unicorns. So I had to pull that out because I thought he would get a kick out of it. So, and then we went to their wedding. This is another really funny story. We had a great time. And at the time, we had a wonderful Newfoundland who I think probably met her Uncle Phil upstairs for sure. But it was called the Goofy Newfie. And and our dog was a Newfoundland. So he and Annie got along great. And he was always like, how's my Goofy Newfie? And we would go to this bar. It was like their local bar in the town that they lived in. And it snowed the morning of their wedding. And I texted Phil, I'm like, is the wedding going to happen? I'm from Kentucky. And we're in Florida. And he's like, Reese, you're an idiot. It's Canada. Like, of course we're getting married. I was like, I just want to make sure there was not going to cancel or anything. This would have been really bad.
So they were married less than 10 years then, right? Or around 10 years?
I think they were married 11, 10, 11. Oh, gosh. I'm really bad with dates. They were married around 10 years.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, 10, 11 years, yeah.
And they met at college, if I remember him saying that right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They met at college, and Phil, Phil was the coach, the equestrian team coach.
That's right.
Of Meredith. That's right, of her team. So that's how they met. So we always tease them because it was scandalous. So we always tease them. But they were together a long time. And we had not started the show. Travis and I got married in 2006. So I remember going to the conference and everybody cheering for our wedding. So we had just gotten married when I met Phil about a year later. So he didn't actually come to our wedding, but we got married a long time ago. So yeah.
So yeah, there's some things about Phil that you may not have known.
I know.
The music thing is still the thing that blows Jennifer and I away because it's so just out of what you would even imagine.
So out of it, and they loved it. I mean,
he wasn't covered in tattoos or nothing.
No. You would never have noticed. And actually, that was the last time we saw in person. Actually, we were at Margaritaville, and he wanted to go to Margaritaville. Like he had, I guess, he was like, I stayed up all night on Black Friday just to get these rooms at Margaritaville. And I was like, what?
In Florida?
In Florida.
Yeah.
So we went, and so our last in person, we were drinking Margaritavilles and margarita, and he had his Hawaiian shirt on, which is really funny because Phil always wore blue. And we're always like, come on, Phil, let's change the color. And he was always in blue.
Well, you know what's funny is I remember him in Hawaiian shirts because I went on a cruise with him.
Yep.
And I was like, I need to wear an Hawaiian shirt to his celebration because
he would love it.
He would love that. I'm not sure anybody else would get it, but Phil would get it.
He would get it. He would get
Meredith would probably get it too.
She would get it too. So
we're going to miss him.
Guys, we're going to miss him. I'm going to miss him every day. You just can't replace a friendship like that. But again, wow, 568 episodes. Yeah, we'll never do a show without him, but man, it was a fun ride. And Phil, I'm glad we have an angel in heaven and he'll be watching out for us. And he watched out for me here. So I'm so thankful he's up there because I need him for sure.
I wanted to end with a song. I get your tissues out, everybody.
Yeah.
So there's this guy we know named Jared Rogerson, who's a singer, and he was a rodeo guy. He rode broncs and stuff. And he's a great musician. I met him actually this year for the first time, spent a couple days with him. We bunked in the same house, actually, in California. And he did a song called Peace, Love, and Horses, and that's what Phil was all about. And so I'm dedicating this to Meredith and Phil, and we'll end the show this way. And Reese will be back. There's going to be a break. And then when she comes back with new hosts, it's going to be different. And that's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay to be different. And it'll be new, and it'll be exciting because Reese is here.
Well, we'll try and keep it exciting for sure. I don't know if I'll have the banter I had with Phil, but yeah. And it will be hard for me. But I'm really coming back, honestly, for you all, because everyone has been such a huge part of my life, and I'm so thankful. So thank you all. We're all thinking about you. I think we're all hurting together, and I'm thankful for you all. So.
Wildflowers in her hair. She can go anywhere on that Palomino mare. She's got Rocky Mountain ivory that she wears around her neck, and the Grateful Dead play a song in her head. Somewhere between cowboy and hippie, she's all about peace, love, horses, and me. She could end a war with just a smile. She can drive a tractor, baling hay for miles and miles. She says innocence grows right out of the ground. She believes in heaven, and what goes around comes around. Somewhere between cowboy and hippie, she's all about peace, love, horses, and me. Doing that song that he sang about two books with different covers, but the pages are the same. It's certain as a river in the spring. You seal a deal with a handshake, that's her philosophy. She can rope and ride, and she likes hanging out with me. She believes that love is the one thing that can change anything. And she loves me, and that's the part that gets me. She's all about peace, love, horses, and me.